time for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author, director Luke Yankee, and wedding consultant Joyce Scardina Becker. Director, producer, actor, playwright Luke Yankee was born and raised in Connecticut, the son of actress Eileen Heckert. His father, Jack, was the anchor for him and his two brothers. Luke went to Juilliard, NYU, and when you got out of school, Luke, what were you going to do?
I was going to be an actor. And I started out in regional theater and then really sort of fell into directing and felt like I was wearing shoes that fit for the first time.
Is that right?
I assisted Hal Prince on a Broadway show called Grind, a big musical with Ben Vereen. And then I just went for years kind of assistant directing on Broadway and doing my own things in community theater as a director, wherever they'd have me.
Oh, so what happened to acting? You were acting as a child.
I was acting as a child, but it sort of took a back seat for a while, and now the wheel has come full circle because in addition to the book,
right.
I'm also doing a one-man show, which is really kind of how the book started.
Yeah, that's what but the acting went back. Were you doing off-Broadway at all, or were you just directing?
I directed off-Broadway.
Oh, you
yes,
directed?
Yes. The last thing I directed off-Broadway was a production of The Cherry Orchard with Cynthia Nixon and Penny Fuller and David Canary, some marvelous people. But it's wonderful the way it's come full circle, Joan, because well, after my mother passed away, she had all this memorabilia from a 50-year career in show business, and I was the only one who knew all of these stories.
Your brothers didn't hang around, did they?
And not as much as I did, because I was the one who started out acting and really shared that bond with my mother, and they had different bonds that they shared. But for instance, as we're sorting through all of her memorabilia from a 50-year career in show business, one of my brothers would say, "Luke, what's this picture?" I said, "Oh, that's that great story Mom used to tell about Cary Grant." What great story about Cary Grant. And I realized that I was the one who was I was the keeper of the flame.
Were you the youngest?
I was the baby.
Oh, that's
yes.
why.
Yes,
and she
indeed.
probably had already gone through her career. Career things change, don't they?
They do.
The way you kind of relate to your family.
They can, yes, but I just loved hearing these stories from the time I was a little boy. So I got some friends together in my living room and put together some photographs and a little video clip, and I said, "Do I have anything here?" And they said, "Luke, you're sitting on a gold mine."
And this is it, the gold mine, this is
well,
the book?
First it was the one-man show, which is called Diva Dish, which I'm touring around the country with. And from the very first time I did the one-man show, people said, "This has to be a book." So Just Outside the Spotlight was born.
And just outside the spotlight means what?
Well, it's got several different meanings. My mother was mainly a character actress. So she was the one playing the second banana to Marilyn Monroe in Bus Stop, to Sophia Loren, to so many major stars who are very much in the spotlight. So as a character actress, she was outside the spotlight many times, and as her son, I was outside of the spotlight. At times she came into it, at times I came into it.
That was great. Then when this was all going on in the East, on the East
Mostly,
Coast.
yes.
When did you come to LA?
I moved to LA the day before the Northridge earthquake.
Oh, so
People tried to blame me, but I wouldn't take the rap.
Did you come to write or act?
I
or
didn't.
What?
I really, at the time, I had been directing in regional theater, and I came out here to pursue work directing film and television, and within a short period of time found myself as producer of the Long Beach Civic Light Opera, which at the time was the biggest regional theater for musicals in this part of the country.
Oh, I didn't know you directed music. That's fabulous.
Musicals, yes, big musicals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
So you sing?
I do. I do. In fact, I sing a few numbers in my one-man show.
Oh, you do sing. And did you train in opera?
I didn't train in opera. No, this is light opera, as in musical theater.
I see.
Yes,
So
but this really as a director.
But
Yes.
still,
Exactly.
you could.
Yeah. So, you know, whatever it is in show business, wherever the work is, I'll go there. And at the moment, I have tremendous passion for this book, and I feel like it's the most important thing I've ever done in my life.
Well, and the other thing is, I think if you have an interest in something, you can start studying it, and everything
Absolutely.
you know kind of will fall in together and work for you.
Well, it's amazing the way I dined out on these cocktail party stories of my mother's for years, and as did she, and now here they are in a book.
But what happened actually when you were performing or when you were directing, did your mother come to the theater?
She did, she did, and sometimes she could be very tough on me.
As a critic, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, from the time I was a little boy, she didn't mince any words. She had very high standards, and it really made me better, and it made me stronger as an actor and as a director.
What about going to her performances? What stands out in your mind?
Wow, there were so many of them. She did a one-woman show as Eleanor Roosevelt, that I saw many, many times. And I talk about in the show and in the book the fact that I really learned a great deal. I really learned what acting was through seeing her do Butterflies Are Free on Broadway.
Oh, that's where she got her
Well, she
Tony?
was nominated for a Tony, and she won an Academy Award for that, for doing the film.
Oh, for the film. So
Yes.
she did them both.
That's
is
right.
Is this part of the one
That's,
person?
yes, indeed. That's her one-woman show as Eleanor Roosevelt. Yes, she did several one-person shows, and found it incredibly daunting, but once she overcame that she was out on stage doing a 78-page monologue, she found it very gratifying, as do I with my show.
When you started the book, how long did it take you to put it all together?
About a year and a half.
Oh, that's all?
Well, that's all, but really because I'd been working, since I'd been doing the one-man show for 3 years beforehand, which it's based on, and also since so much of it is really, you know, my personal stories and her personal stories. For instance, I talk about, I really use her stories and the story of her career as the backdrop, and also tell many of my own. For instance, I talk about Ethel Merman teaching me how to make a martini when I was 10 years old.
Oh,
Paul
that's
Newman,
in the show.
And in the book, yes.
yeah.
Paul Newman giving me acting lessons in my parents' living room when I was in children's theater, fielding calls from reporters the night she won the Oscar, and it's lots of fun.
The thing that I found, and we talk about actors or people having different responsibilities in different parts of their life. It seemed like your mom was always dragging you along with her at different places.
Well,
and she would like confide in you as a son.
She did, yes. We were very close in that regard, and I think it had to do with the fact that, first of all, that I was the baby.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And also the fact that we shared our passion for acting and for the theater. She had different bonds with my brothers. She was equally close to them, but in different ways.
And your father?
My father was an insurance broker in Connecticut. They were married for 53 years.
I know, and she was broken, wasn't she, when he died?
Absolutely devastated.
So you
yes.
can see how important he was to her life.
Well,
like, as I said, the anchor for your family, but maybe he was the silent anchor.
He was very much the silent anchor, yes. I mean, she always said that she was a wife and mother first and an actress second. And it's really extraordinary that she was able to have this great career and yet maintain a family and a marriage for all those years.
Right. But she also had these people helping her. I mean,
Absolutely.
She had a husband who was supportive.
She had a husband who was extremely supportive. She used to say, Jack was women's lib long before there was women's lib. And also, we had a Scottish governess who was with our family for 35 years.
Nanny.
Nanny was great, and Nanny had an accent you could cut with a knife till the day she died, and she used to say, "Och, I'm your mummy's understudy."
I was going to say, did that help you with your dialogue?
It did, actually, yes.
But she also, so it really shows when you say just outside the spotlight, it shows all these people who were on the outside
Yes.
really supporting a woman who was a great actress.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And I was talking to someone the other day talking about the book because I just loved reading it. And the highest compliment, she was an actor's actor.
Mm-hmm.
Is what this person told me who's in show business.
Yeah, she really was. I mean, she was so hardworking, and she had many opportunities to be a star.
Oh, tell us, yeah. Go
Well,
on.
and for instance, there was a moment where Lucille Ball wanted to make her a very big star, and she turned it down because it would have meant moving to Los Angeles, and my father's job was in Connecticut. And so, you know, as I say, the wife and mother came first.
One of the things that I noticed in the book was that it teaches us life's little lessons. And were those the things your mom used to say to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like treat people with respect, which is not a big deal.
Well, she would come home from rehearsal and tell me things that had happened with a director or a fellow actor, and really taught me some incredible life lessons about how to behave with people, treating people with respect, as you say. And also, too, I feel I learned a great deal about my mother's life through watching her die in her final days, in her bout with lung cancer. And one of the last things
she never had a cigarette out of her hand, did she?
Never.
Every picture
Never.
there was a cigarette.
In fact, at the very end, even when she was on oxygen, she was still puffing away. And I said, would you please turn off the oxygen? I know you're ready to go, but I don't want to go with you.
Well, you had that all your life, too.
Exactly. But one of the last lessons she taught me was that in her final days, she said she really felt that she had learned that the most important thing in life was to be kind to people.
And that takes me to the understudy story,
Yes.
because
Right.
she was understudying someone on Broadway who
Exactly.
was very kind to her.
Yes.
And then she was very kind to one of her understudies.
To many of them.
Tell us. To many of them. Marie Cheatham.
Exactly, of course. Because of this story, she was understudying Audrey Christie in a play called The Voice of the Turtle.
Right.
And this would have been back in the late 40s. And she was so naive, being from Columbus with her saddle shoes, that she just assumed that an understudy automatically got to play. So she had gotten a season of summer stock, and she was leaving the show, and so she went to the producer and said, I'd like to give you my notice, and I'd like to go on for the Saturday matinee on the 23rd. And he just looked at her like she was an alien. He said, well, this just isn't a good time, dear. That just won't work. So she went to Audrey Christie and was in tears and explained what happened. So Audrey Christie, who was a big star at the time, went to the producer and said, I'm going to have a toothache.
On the 23rd.
Yes, on Saturday the 23rd. And the producer got very angry. He was a very staunch man named Alfred de Liagra. And he said, you cannot do this to me. And she said, take me up on equity charges if you want to, but Heckert plays one performance.
My 2/3.
Exactly. I'm going to have a toothache on that day. So from that time on, my mother always said to her understudy, Marie Cheatham being one of them on a show called Ladies at the Alamo, she always said to her understudy, let me know when you'd like to go on.
But that really helped your mother. That got her in the limelight, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Yes, it absolutely did, because here she is playing a leading role on Broadway.
Right.
And bought a whole bunch of tickets and invited other people.
That was so great.
Invited all of her agents and producers, so that everyone she knew, and got several other jobs as a result of that.
There are so many other stories in here, and I think I loved reading it because you mentioned all these people. Marie Cheatham's been on the Joan Quinn Profiles, Margaret O'Brien,
Exactly.
John Lahr, Milton Katselas, who was a director.
Of course.
So we have this great bind. That's why I loved reading it.
Thank you.
Do you call it a memoir?
It really is a memoir, yes, yes. I mean, some people call it a biography, but it's very much her story through my eyes.
And it's a tribute also.
Yes, it's very much a tribute, yes. And that's why I feel like it's the most important thing I've ever done.
Luke, before we leave, just tell us the one funny thing about Marlene Dietrich, who was always telling your mother what to do.
The night my mother won the Academy Award, when they got back to the hotel, there was a huge stack of messages and telegrams, and the one on the top simply said, call Marlene. So Mom's thinking, won't it be thrilling? My first message after winning the Oscar will be from Marlene Dietrich. And so she dials the phone. Hello, Marlene, it's Eileen. Darling, your makeup looked terrible.
Is that great? She felt so close to her, though, didn't she?
She did, and in her staunch Germanic way, that was the way she could congratulate her.
But only she could do that.
Only she.
So there are so many stories. That's why I loved reading it all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you for watching this part of the show. We'll be right back with Joyce Becker. Perfect. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guest, author, wedding consultant, and wedding planner, Joyce Scardina Becker, is a native of Northern California, where she went to school, where she still lives and works. She earned a bachelor's degree from San Francisco State University, and also has a degree from City College of San Francisco. Did you think that this was going to be your career when you were going to college?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I'm one of very few people that actually majored and then got a job.
In wedding planning?
Well, just about. Hospitality management.
Yeah.
But I also knew at a very, very young age, I can blame it on my older sisters, Jerry and Diane. I was a flower girl.
Oh.
And they were 14 and 12 years older than me. And my mother hired the first wedding planner in the city of San Francisco, Loretta Parker. And I was terribly influenced by everything that she did.
From the time you were what, 6,
6
5?
years old.
So that's great. So when you did get out of school, you were going to go into hospitality, which doesn't really mean wedding planning, but big charity parties?
Charity parties, actually, at one point I thought I would be Julie on board a cruise ship.
Oh, that's an interesting thing.
Or work in a hotel.
Yeah.
And do events in a hotel. But also it was throughout, just when I started at 6, I continued. I also had fabulous parties over at my house. Whether you were a friend or not, you wanted to come to my birthday party.
So you were using all of those skills that you had learned. You even started this certification program, right?
I did.
Tell us what that is about.
I started it 9 years ago at San Francisco State University. I approached the university where I had gone to school myself. There wasn't a program or any certification nationwide in event wedding management. And so I wanted to give it some area of expertise. I wanted to make sure that we were all speaking the same language.
But who would do that? What schools would do that? They cut out all of those home economics courses from the time no high schools have them, or very few high schools have them. And so why would they come back again in a way to college?
Well, first of all, I think weddings are big business. 2.4 million couples are marrying annually. This is $80 billion industry. And also it does fall under hospitality management and special events. We're becoming a society of experts today. Years ago, Mom used to plan the wedding because she was a stay-at-home mom. But today, Mom is working full-time. And so 50% of couples that are getting married are turning to the services of a wedding planner.
50% are getting divorced.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the ones that are staying married and getting married. Or, you know what, actually that's very good business. I can have repeat customers.
Exactly. But the other thing, I think you really touched on something. First of all, you have to have money to hire a wedding planner.
Correct.
I mean, just for starters. So everyone can't hire you.
Well, yes.
So
and
that's why you wrote the book, probably.
Yes and no. I think that, especially in Northern California, weddings are so expensive. The average wedding is about $500 per person times the number of guests.
That's shocking.
It's an investment. It's an investment as to who you are. You're making a statement. You're coming out. And so even if you can't hire a wedding planner for the whole duration of the engagement period, whether it's 12 months or 6 months, you can certainly consider hiring a wedding planner for the last 30 days before the wedding.
Oh, that's interesting. You don't need her all the way along.
No.
You need her at the end when she can pull everything together for you.
Absolutely. And you've got to be able to relinquish at some point.
You know, wasn't Martha Stewart the first person who came up with these wedding books? I remember, 25 years ago, somebody looking at a book and saying, this is what I want for my wedding?
I think so. I think she's also done more for this industry than anybody else. She's elevated florals, she's elevated caterers, and she's certainly elevated wedding planners. So I have a lot to thank for.
But the other thing, when you talk about the money and how much it costs, it seems to me that if you go to anyone, when you go to buy your dress, when you go to rent the hall, whatever you go to do, you say this is for a wedding and the price triples. It seems like when they hear a wedding, all those people raise their prices.
Well, I beg to differ with you. I think,
well, do, because that's the experience a lot of us have had.
I really think that legitimately that good vendors, respectable vendors, are not raising their prices, that they're very aware, they're very conscientious, but it's expensive. And there are different vendors for different categories. For example, if you are a 5-star kind of bride out there that wants a 5-star venue, it's going to be expensive. But that doesn't mean that you have to pay $50,000 or more. You can certainly have a wedding for less. Your vendors will be in a lower category, and so you do have to choose wisely.
I think talking about that and talking about different settings for weddings, I think this picture, how many people are seated at this table?
That is called a king's table. It's 48 inches across. It's probably about 80 feet long, and we have approximately 40 people at that wedding. It was in Napa Valley at a private estate. So I've got 40 people on one side and 40 people on the other for a plated service meal.
And tell us about the colors and the tablecloths.
Very, very non-traditional. That is a plum linen with a chivari chair. Chivari is like a bamboo chair with a cushion done in an olive green. And the place setting has a charger. It also has kind of an orange dazzle napkin linen. Nothing traditional about the colors. It's outdoors, and don't be afraid that when you are outdoors to give it a burst of color, because you're competing with Mother Nature.
Tell us what a charger is.
A charger is a base plate. It remains as a decorative piece. So you're going to want to keep it in the down position for all of your courses, and it's removed when the entree is removed.
This is a little bit closer.
That's
I think you can talk about the place setting here and the flowers.
Which is wonderful about this. Notice that nothing has to match. Today's place settings are all eclectic. Each place flatware, for every course that comes out, there's a different place flatware. The glasses, the wine glass, the water glass, the red and white, they're all very different. And so it's fun to be eclectic and not to have everything matchy-matchy.
Do you choose that with the bride, or does she tell you what she wants?
I like to coach the bride. I want her to think outside the box. I want her to give me her visions, and I'm, like an artist, want to paint on a clear canvas and embellish everything. And again, with this one, it's not about one centerpiece. It's about a collection, a grouping. And as you can see, the vessels, the glass
that's what's
containers,
so nice.
They're all different. They come in different sizes and in different colors. On the far right one, we have an eggplant. We also have a square, a round cylinder, and they're wrapped with a tea leaf inside.
And also fruit.
Fruits and vegetables. The more the better.
Yeah, I think those are wonderful. You in the book, you talk about helping the bride find her dress, and you give the different styles of a dress, right?
I do. And first of all, I think truly you need to think about the venue first. Don't go out and buy the gown, because the gown should complement the venue. And if you are in a wine country setting or a casual or beach setting, you need to have not the ball gown. The ball gown and the empire is reserved more for a hotel type of wedding.
So you have all these different styles. Princess, empire.
Absolutely.
And if she were getting married out in the garden?
Something very casual, very sweet, a lighter fabric. You're not going to be in a Dutch satin, heavy winter fabric.
Right.
So keep the venue as the first choice, and then the gown second.
Here is a bride coming out in the country.
This is Shanna coming out a very country French door, and she's actually wearing a sheath, which is more of a straight line, and a very, very light fabric, nothing double Dutch satin.
And the flowers, her flowers, are not white.
No, never, never white. White is out. White is out for weddings. It's a burst of color. In fact, the colors today for this spring and summer, citrus oranges, tangerines, celadon colors. She's actually somewhat in a burgundy, and they're all tulips.
Oh, they're all tulips. How beautiful.
And calla lilies, what you have here on the set.
One of the things you also talk about is choosing the ring.
Absolutely.
You help with that?
I can. You know, I've been married for 12 years, and I don't think my husband has a clue what kind of jewelry I like.
Oh, so.
So I think that the groom needs to get some helpful hints, whether it's from the bride beforehand or her best friend, and to do a little shopping together.
You also choose the officiant, or you help. I'm just talking about some of the things in the book. The person who performs the ceremony, the children involved, what to do with them. Tell us are there different people who can perform services?
Yes, in the state of California, your father can perform, your best friend. All you do is need to go to the place where you get your marriage license and be deputized for a day to be able to be an officiant. You know, so many brides and grooms are not getting married in the church anymore, and they're getting married at the site where the reception is. So just about anybody can be an officiant.
Here's a more casual, probably what you're talking about, getting married at the site and with umbrellas and these little round tables.
Absolutely. This is done at a private estate, again, in the wine country, and being a little bit more eclectic, mixing up. This is a citrus, lemon and orange with a citrus orange Chiavari chair.
So would they have a buffet lunch for this?
This was
set up
actually
with a buffet?
This was actually cocktail parties.
Oh.
And then they went later into a seated, plated dinner.
I see.
But dinners can be food stations today. No one says it needs to be
Right.
seated or plated. You can have food stations that are somewhat eclectic, different cuisines. So many popular cuisines today for eating. We love Chinese and Indian and Persian. I wouldn't necessarily choose that for the mainstream entree, but don't be afraid to mix up
What about
the hors
music?
d'oeuvres.
What about music?
Oh, everything. Everything from
Can you use a DJ? Can you use music for buying your boombox?
well, you could, but the high end, here's my philosophy about music. I have seen more people dance when it is a live band. It's animated, they're fun to watch, and as far as music, think of a brass quintet for your ceremony, a duo, perhaps steel drums for your cocktails, and a 9-piece orchestra that can bring you everywhere from Sinatra to contemporary for your dinner dance.
Before we leave, this book that you wrote, Countdown to Your Perfect Wedding, is 52 weeks.
It is 52 weeks.
I know, but does a person have a year before they get married to plan all these things?
Well, if you are getting married in less than a year, all you have to do is read a little bit faster.
I see. Joyce, thank you so much for being with us today. And I just couldn't put this down either. I was like, oh, look at all these interesting things.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you. And thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. See you next time.